Hey everyone, this is Zan and welcome to Dominion 6. At a glance, Piconye has some fairly pronounced strengths and weaknesses. Their strengths are that many of their units and commanders are size 2, they're able to mass recruit sacreds in their capital, and they have reliable mages. Their weaknesses are that many of their units and commanders are size 2. They have low mat move, and they tend to have a reliance on communions for late game magic. The units of Piconye tend to have lots of defense, high attack density, and they are easy to buff. On the flip side, they are weak to evocations because they have very low hit points. Their ranged units are cheap and massable, such as the Piconye Crossbowman and the Slinger. As a contrast to their otherwise very low mat move, they actually have one of the highest mat move recruitable units in the game in the Bird Knight. These make excellent mobile raiders that can harass opponents where they might not expect. For the mass recruitable sacreds, they actually come in three flavors. They have the crossbow wielding cross wielder, the soldier priest with a one-hand sword and shield, and the baculite wielding the magical baculus, which has an extra effect whenever they swing to fatigue enemy gods and sacreds. The commanders of Piconye include inexpensive researchers in the Piconye Sage. They have versatile, sacred, foreign recruitable communion mages in the Piconye Sage Priest. These are your reliable communion masters and slaves. They have Piconye Popes in the capital at 2 recruitment points each, which are Holy 3. They also have a Holy 3 Prester King that can move in the magic phase and help you claim thrones in a surprise throne rush. The spell recommendations tend to be buff oriented, or at least I would recommend they be buff oriented in terms of Strength of Giants, Flaming Arrows, Body Ethereal, Twist Fate, and so on. Alternatively, you can focus on evocations and use the Piconye Sage Priest to cast spells such as Gifts from Heavens, Fireballs, and Astral Fires. For the early gameplay, I would recommend a traditional buff-oriented Doom stack with mass range units, especially these crossbowmen, and an early mage usage, just because each mage is able to buff so many more units than other nations might be able to. I also recommend using the defenders as a frontline because they tend to be very reliable, hard to kill, and they move at such a slow combat speed that they will actually force the fight to be closer to your ranged camp and your mages, giving them a little bit better accuracy. I would also recommend using the fact that these Sage Priests are recruitable outside of forts to delay your first fort and instead build temple labs around your cap circle, just to be able to recruit more of these guys than your opponent might be recruiting mages themselves. Each temple also adds to your sacred recruitment limit, so this is actually going to help you out if you have a powerful bless. While all this is happening, I do recommend deep raiding with these Bird Knights, especially in provinces your opponent might not expect due to just how far their map move is. As you start transitioning to the mid game, I would recommend adding Maliks with certain items to your raiding squads. These Malik thugs will be able to fight off a lot more province defense than, say, a bunch of Bird Knights would, especially if you give them the right items. Their combination of awe and invulnerability, a few resistances, and the fact that they're sacred and stealthy really gives them the edge when fighting province defenses. They're not too expensive to summon either. Meanwhile, although early game I recommended having these fortless temples and labs, as you go to the mid game, you really do want a lot of forts because you need to start printing units because you really need to outnumber your enemy every fight. As you transition to the late game with Piconye, I would recommend your goals revolve around controlling globals with whatever gems you have found, but specifically your astral globals. This is because you don't tend to have any blood on the nation, and you don't have fairly powerful summons or mages in the late game. You do have a lot of communions. However, I would also recommend adding the sky metal shards and slave matrices just to auto communion and get some spells out earlier on the field and prevent any army wipes. With that note, you also really want to be aware and very afraid of remote attacks like flames from the sky because your units tend to have low hit points and are packed very close together, and the AI might not always script something to protect you from these remote attacks in the battle that happens. for Pretender design now, I say that you likely want a powerful bless for your Sacreds that help them hit above their weight. They don't necessarily need to match enemy Sacreds 1-to-1, but if they outnumber the enemy Sacreds, they should at least be able to punch through whatever armor or protection the other Sacred has and give you some killing power that this nation might not otherwise have, especially once the crossbow isn't as effective. I would also choose one of the 3 sacred units to focus your bless on, because it might be pretty hard to get a good bless for all 3 of them. That being said, while you're trying to purchase this bless, I might recommend not trashing your scales too much, just because you do need a lot of troops out on the field to protect your mages. Since they are size 2 and they pack so tightly in a square, you won't actually have a lot of field coverage. And so your armies might get surrounded and the mages in the back might get attacked. So that's something to be aware of. With all that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this quick glance at Piconye, keeping in mind that although I may not have actually played this nation yet in a full multiplayer game, these are just my best recommendations as a Dominions 5 veteran. If you do disagree with some of the things I've said, or maybe I've missed something completely and you want to add, please feel free to add that in the comments below. And as always, do like and subscribe on the video. And I hope to see you guys again next time.